speak to Americans in the cab, and they come in and they say, you've got the greatest, you had the greatest cab service in the world.
Yeah.
Why is there any need for the likes of Uber?
Yeah.
We are the envy of the world everywhere.
Thank you for supporting our channel. Thank you for supporting Wizan. Please like, subscribe, comment, and hit the notification bell for any future videos. It's lovely to see you. Really, you know that you're a very, very dear friend for me.
Oh, that's very kind of you to say so.
No, I don't know why, but I've always been fond of you from day one. And day one was 29 years ago, I think.
Wow.
So, and I was saying to you the other day, we met in Exeter Street. You was in your cab. I was with Jason. I was on my Cub 90 and I pulled up beside your window. You didn't get out your cab, lazy sod. You just sat there. And Jason said to me that you was one of the oldest cab drivers even then, but you really wasn't. You was kind of a butter boy then. So just for those watching, Dave, Pete's a 29 badge.
29580.
What year was that, Pete?
1981, September the 15th, 1981. Wow. 42 years last Friday.
Dave, that's the year. I mean, that was the year we left school.
It is the year you left school, 81, yeah.
So you started driving a cab when we left school. I'm here today with Peter Maynard and my good friend Dave Frampton for just a really slightly different podcast than usual. Just a chat with two legends. Dave's already a legend. He's been out 3 years and he's a legend. And Pete, you've been out so long, it's ridiculous. I mean,
42 years.
42 years.
Wow.
And I can actually still remember my very first. I'd signed a Wangler contract with Stuart's Garage in Farm Lane. If anybody remembers Farm Lane,
it's not the Farm Lane. We know Farm Lane very well, but it's the Wangler contract that they're not going to know what that is.
The Wangler contract was when you was in your final stages of the knowledge, you would go into to do your suburbs and the like. You would actually sign a pre-contract with a garage to actually drive one of their cabs for a period of time. So basically, they would give you a free cab for you to do your suburbs, save you having to traipse out to far off places such as Kingston and the likes.
Yeah.
And halfway down up the A41.
That faded out, didn't it, the Wanglers? They don't do it now.
Yeah, I know.
Did you know what it meant?
No. What is it? What?
It says basically you got a contract before you got out.
Yeah, and then you sign a contract to drive one of their cabs for 3 months. And that's simple as that. And it was, I remember my first cab, WYL 455S.
Well, now you've reminded me, H160YUL, which is our cab. Yeah, so I bought Pete's cab for, overpriced, I think, £8,000 I think I bought it from you for.
It's funny you actually say that, because I remember you paid me cash, and I walked into M&O's to buy the new one. I think it was I'm trying to think what cab it was actually. Like I actually bought after it would have S741 LGN, and I remember walking into the M&O showroom on the way road with a bag full of cash. And I said, well, this is going to take a bit of time, Mr. Maynard.
You had cash for the whole...
Well, not for the whole thing. Obviously, I finance a little bit, but the actual deposit, what you actually gave to me in cash, they had to go, and they had half a dozen secretaries upstairs.
So you bought a brand new cab then. Dave, you've bought the brand new cab now. No. You didn't go in there with a bag of cash. You didn't go in there with 70 grand.
No. Do you know what? I tried to pay by debit card, and I did. I just paid by debit card, and they couldn't do it.
It won't take it, or
they won't do it. You know why? Because of the commission because even a commission, there's a commission to charge for a debit card. So bank transfers free.
Right.
So paid deposit £500 by a debit card, and the rest I had to physically go into the bank and do it, which is like they didn't want it. They didn't want the fee.
Oh dear. Do you remember, I mean, we're talking number plates as if this was a thing, we could name the number plates.
I can actually remember every single one of my cabs that I've ever My first ever cab was from the old M&O's down on Wandsborough Bridge Road. That was OYL732Y.
Was it FX4?
No, that was an FX4R.
Oh.
The one that wouldn't go up Highgate Hill.
But that was the Metro cab, yeah, as well.
If you had 4 passengers in, you had to explain to them.
One had to push.
One's going to have to get out and jump on the bus to get up there. But that was luckily. I actually, when it comes
never got a fare up, I guess. Luckily,
no. But that was a real dog of a cab.
Yeah.
But luckily, I traded it in after 2 years with very, very low mileage, and M&O's was pretty fair in what they actually give me as a trading, because after that they replaced something on the cogs to give them a bit more.
It was normal though, wasn't it? I mean, the fairway was better, but I did have a Metro cab.
I remember you on
either
Metro
before
cab,
or after, but that when you went up Dartmouth Park Hill, you could literally get out of the cab and walk beside it. It was as if it was in drive on flat ground. That was how fast it would get up that hill, and that's no exaggeration. I don't think people fully appreciate how dreadful the speed was.
Yeah, it was. Everyone see it. Even I want a cab driver, but I see them all going so slow.
Couldn't do anything. Yeah, you'd have your foot
Why was
right
that?
down. It was the wrong combination of maybe gearbox to engine and to weight ratio. It just nothing was. Everything on it was Lego. So the headlights were off a Ford Granada. The handles were off a Honda Civic. Everything was taken off other models of car and put together. And I think, as I said to you just today, the power steering pump, which was classic, you would turn the steering wheel, it would rip the power steering pump off of the engine. And then, so all the bolts have gone. So you have to have it rebored to have the bolts put in. And it would rip off again. So it just, the power steering couldn't cope with the pump to turn the wheels. It was dreadful.
I actually did have a cab where that actually happened on one of the FX4s.
Yeah.
And basically...
The same thing.
It sheared it off, because when the initial steering box had been changed, if it had been changed and you hadn't had a shim put in it, then M&O's wouldn't give the warranty. If you had your gearbox, steering box changed and had the shim put in, it would have been okay. They would have honoured the repair on it.
Yeah.
Because the shim wasn't put in.
What was the shim in the gearbox?
No, it's just a shim on the steering box.
All
just
right.
a little, what they call them?
A bush.
Like a spacer, so a washer.
Washer, basically, which just raised it up. But obviously that's trying to deal with M&O's is...
Yeah.
So it was out of line then, really?
Basically,
it wasn't lined up correctly from the original.
That's
so
where
to pack it up to...
Well, he just brought us here, Dave, today in his nice electric cab. So you've done almost every model.
I have, yes.
With cobwebs, that one.
Well, there was cobwebs in your electric cab
Was
just
that,
now.
was that an extra?
That's testament to how much I actually do work these days.
But how do you find that electric in comparison to
it's basically what happened. I was old guy, when I say old guy, he's actually a guy of my age, Jeff, over in Sydenham. I was been renting off him. Prior to COVID, I was renting a TX off of him. And then obviously, once things went down to Swanee, then I packed up and took a job elsewhere for a short period of time, working for Her Majesty's government down at Manston Airport.
what, as customs?
No, it was something similar. When the Brexit kicked in, and what Manston Airport was being used as a holding park for all the lorries going over to France and Dover. Going through Dover, through to France. And Manston Airport was a giant car park of 3,000 lorries at one time. So I got the wonderful job of processing the dangerous good vehicles.
Wow.
Whilst waiting to go over to... And obviously we was checking, because COVID had kicked in at that time.
So this is a COVID job?
No, it wasn't actually basically a COVID job, but we was having to make sure that the drivers had the correct paperwork to travel to France, because the French government was insisting that...
They changed the paperwork rules because of the Brexit?
No, they was insisting that the drivers would be fully vaccinated going back into France. So we had various divisions of the army. We had the Gurkhas. They're actually doing... We didn't physically test the the drivers. It was the army whose job it was.
Yep.
We was there to do the paperwork. But ironically, I was working with 4 other London cab drivers whilst down.
How did that
there. Well, basically, we was working for a company called Right Guard, who are
Deodorant.
Deodorant company, yeah.
A Kent-based security guard company. When I actually applied for the job, I thought, "Oh, this is it. I'm going to be working at the airport doing." But lo and behold, when we actually got there, we was no more than pen pushers, box tickers,
so
and what have you. But it turned out to be quite truthful. With the 4 of us, we had an absolute scream. 4 days on, 4 days off, 12-hour shifts. But I built up a really good friendship with particularly 2 of the guys who we're still in contact with now, and it's.
So what was this I heard then that you was working as a greeter at Asda? Did you work as a greeter? I'll cut that bit out if it's true.
Or working with greeter.
I can honestly categorically deny I have never worked.
I think Jason told me. Jason said to me, "Have you heard about Pete?" I said, "What? He's only working as a greeter in Asda." I said, "What? He's a cab driver. What's he working in Asda for?" Oh, because you had some, and obviously you got better. You had some health issues.
Yes. Back in 2013, I was waking up in the night with chest pains and discomfort in the chest because I'd previously had a cardiac history, as they put it, back in 1990. I was one of the first persons to ever have the
stent.
It wasn't actually a stent back in 1990. It was the angiogram when they put the balloon in. But that actually worked so well that they actually used me as a case study as to how well angioplasty actually works. But further down the line, 13 years later, because I was getting these chest pains, an overzealous doctor sent me to St Thomas's Hospital to be checked out whilst carrying out a further angiogram. They did a dissection and ripped open my arteries on a T-section, causing me to actually have 5 stents in one area.
So they caused the problem.
That they actually called it, and basically it was. Well, I knew I was in trouble when the on-call surgeon said to somebody, "Could you ring my wife and tell her I'm going to be home late?"
I'll be home on Wednesday.
And I'm laying because obviously while you're having this procedure, you're wide awake, and you're watching it on banks of screens all around you, and you're thinking, "God, I'm in trouble." And then they kept saying, "Are you? What's the pain like on a scale of 1 to 10?" Well, I was 11.
Yeah,
and it was horrendous. But the irony of it was, once they got me up into ICU, which is the intensive care unit, up on the upper floors, the consultant come up to me. He said, "You know the sad thing about this?" He said, "Your heart was disgustingly healthy." And
so the issue was by exploratory surgery, in a sense.
Yes,
caused you major issues.
Caused, but since then, obviously, I have to jump through hoops every 3 years with the PCO to...
Me too. The medical thing for me has been a nightmare. They cause aggravation every time.
Basically, it's box ticking.
Yeah, box ticking.
It is box ticking to a ridiculous... In actual fact, you're going to laugh at this, my consultant at St Thomas's was Dr Clapp. But in actual fact, he was old school, so I think he was probably he was come from Cambridge, and I think he probably won a scholarship because he was a real down to earth, really nice guy, and you go in there and he would F and blind, and he did actually threaten to take the TfL to task over what they was insisting on.
Weren't they maybe responsible for some compensation because you're going to lose your job if this is?
Well, basically, I did go down that road, but unfortunately, with the medical profession, it's very, very hard to get one doctor to go against another doctor's word. And unfortunately, and I was advised in so many terms by someone in the hospital, look, you're not going to really gain too much out of it for all the stress and tribulations you will get from it.
Yeah.
Just stop it. So I did, basically.
Dave, did you have medical with no issues at all?
Oh, no, I'm a healthy person. You know that.
Well, you don't look it.
Well, I called you a Matty just now, was I?
No, I get aggro, and so I thought you might get something.
COVID one I did. COVID one, because when we did the badge at COVID time, it was horrendous trying to get anyone to do anything.
Yes, you said about the doctor through the window.
Oh, God, yeah. So, that was That was quite so the COVID, but other than that, no, I've renewed it just this year, and no, it went straight through.
Yeah. Well, mine missed the box. Saying about box ticking, the 4 or 5 heart boxes, he forgot to tick one. All he had to do is go down and tick it. I get a letter back, and I pulled them up yesterday with the admin. The letter comes back. You've not passed the correct medical details to us. You have 28 days to correct this thing. And it's like everything was really threatening. It's like, it's a box missed, you know. Just calm down. But you've now got the aggro, haven't you? You've got to go back to the doctor, make an appointment to the doctor, say to him, can you tick this box that you missed? And then after that, hopefully everything's okay. But if you have a blood pressure test and it's something over 100, so the lower number is in the 100, you can't drive. You have to get your blood pressure below something over 100. It's got to be 99 and less.
Yeah, it's the 100s when they start to get worried.
Yeah.
Or it's on the lower number.
So it could be 140 over 99, you're fine.
Yeah.
140 over 100, you're not fine. 120 over 100, you're not fine. That lower number being 100 is the breaking point.
Yeah, it's like when I have to do my stress, I do a stress echocardiogram because of...
Every medical?
Every 3 years you do.
You've got to go through the tests every 3 years.
Yeah, the stress echo test.
Yeah.
But basically, because... the normal procedure would that be to do the Bruce protocol on the treadmill. But what happens with me, because of my extent to my stenting in my Q waves fall just outside of the parameter of acceptability.
Right.
So they have to do an alternative thing. And so I fall in line with, so I do what a stress echocardiogram is. Basically, they'll inject serum into and to get your heart beating, and then obviously they can tell, but it doesn't affect the Q waves.
So are you suggesting that the doctors are actually trying their best to manipulate the data so that it comes out in your favour?
I wouldn't be saying that, no.
Because they do.
Yeah.
They do. I mean, I had my blood pressure done, and he done it with the electric machine, and it was too high. And he said, oh, sorry, then we need the manual one. He gets the manual one out, and he's like, yeah, that's more like it. That's what we need.
And they changed the arm as well.
Change the arm,
yeah.
yeah.
I'll try the other arm.
Let's do it again. Just sit there and
because they know it's not that. You're not sky high.
No.
You know, you're borderline or just above it. And another thing is, you've just walked there. You may have walked there and just got there. And like me, I've called straight in.
Yeah.
And then because the blood pressure's going to be slightly high.
I put it down to white coat syndrome.
Yeah,
That's what it basically is, isn't it? It is. It's a well-known fact.
So, Pete, how old are you now?
67.
67.
Is there a point when you have to do the medical every year?
Yeah, I do.
You do it every year now?
I'm currently, after the age of 65.
Do you have to go through all of what you've just said?
No, basically your annual checkup with your GP is yearly, and the cardiac test is every 3 years, which unfortunate, a lot of the guys, they end up having to pay for it, £600-700 to that place up in Barnet where you can actually go to have it done. But all I do is, I built up a good relationship with my consultant at St Thomas's. I just email, I said, Brian, it's that time again.
Yeah.
And he just does it. He just does it
on the NHS. So you're robbing the NHS basically.
Yes, why not?
Jeez.
Well, I think yes, payback time.
Yeah.
That's better than I thought, because I did think first of all is to do it every year, all of it. But getting over 65 is not that much to worry about then.
No, not really.
Every year we go to our GP. Me and you are going to be coming up and
is it that much of a pain to do all of it every 3 years? Or
no, actually saying that my last one I did in it was my GP. I had a wonderful GP, Dr. Wolfgang Wallet.
Oh God.
Of the Woodland Surgery in Sidcup. Big up for Wolfgang. And it was his actual last day of practice in the NHS. So he was probably on a jolly up, and we sat there talking for ages whilst he was actually ticking the boxes.
His real name was Wolfgang Wallet.
His real name was Wolfgang Wallet, but he was actually he actually did train at St Thomas's but he'd been over here for many years.
And the other doctor was called Ivor Clapp.
Dr. Brian Clapp.
Brian Clapp.
It all happens at St Thomas's.
And you're really healthy now.
Yes.
How many years did it put you out? Because I know you wasn't driving a cab all the time for this period.
Yeah. With that, I was off probably, I think, about 9 months.
9 months. So you was 9 months working as a greeter in Asda, and then you came back to the trade. I imagined you with your greeter's badge. My name's Pete. I'm here to welcome you into Aston.
No, fortunately, at that time, my outgoings was relatively low, and I had the luxury of reaping in my LTDA sickness payments, which
is something to talk about.
Yeah, listen, people do knock the LTDA, but when it comes to things such as that, obviously the insurance payments and that, and obviously legal things, when you get accused wrongly by certain passengers.
Have you had that?
Yes, I did. I actually had a gentleman. This guy was actually the doorman on the park. What's the Park Lane Hotel on Piccadilly, when it was called the Park Lane.
Park Lane Hotel on Piccadilly, yes. It's now next to the Athenaeum.
Yes.
But what was it called? What's it called now, Dave? You know the Athenaeum on Piccadilly? There was the Park Lane Hotel was next door, Brick Street, Down Street.
Ask the cab driver.
I don't ask me.
Just past the Hard Rock Cafe.
I can see it, yeah, but I can't say it.
It must be called the Park Lane. I
thought it was still Park Lane, isn't it? Why do you think it's charged to change names? Is it not Park Lane? Or has it got a chain? Is it a chain? It's one of those chains.
It's actually one of the chains.
Yeah.
Anyway, so this particular evening...
Is it a Sheraton?
Yes, it
is Sheraton Park Lane.
It is the
we got there eventually between the three of us.
Yeah.
How many years of knowledge between us?
No, come on, let's be fair. We've done our stuff, we've done our days, we knew what we knew, and if we can pull something, brilliant.
Anyway, this one particular evening, it was busy. I noticed a link man on the hotel. He was hailing passing Ubers to put passengers in. And I pulled over and had a few choice words with him. And that was it, forgotten, drove off, picked up the fare. Then about 2 weeks later, I was driving through Kensington Gore. I pulled alongside a Mercedes, class Mercedes it was, with an Uber sticker on the side of it. And lo and behold, I looks across and I actually see it was the link man from the hotel driving an Uber. And obviously a few choice words was actually said, nothing untoward.
So you had the ump, basically, with his
I had the ump, and I said, I wonder if your hotel manager knows that what you
do,
what you actually do, and how you actually hail Ubers on the street in Piccadilly to stick the hotel clients in. And he did nothing. Anyway, a few days later, the proprietor I was driving for said, we've had a telephone call from the Ladbroke Grove police station. They want you to go in and actually speak to them. And obviously what he had done, he had levelled accusations of racism against me. And so obviously things of that nature are taken very, very seriously. So lo and behold, I rang the LTDA and I met a lovely young barrister, or not barrister, but solicitor outside the police station on the said morning, and we actually went in. She forewarned me as to what they would try to do and try to say, but as it happened, I sat down and was interviewed by a lovely WPC who I think straight away you could tell that it was a spurious accusation. And basically I won't repeat what I was supposed to have actually said. What I said to him.
Okay, so he's lied about what you actually said.
He's totally lied.
He's played a card there, isn't he? He's sad that they have to do that.
He's played a card, and it's just ridiculous. Anyway, to cut a long story short, I sat and had a conversation with a WPC, and she said, "This ain't going no further," and that was the end of it. But it just goes to show how easily it is for these guys to make up.
Yeah. And you're also saying the LTDA are there. They were there with you. I'm not trying to do a big up for the LTDA in any way, but like you say, they do get knocked very often for other aspects. These are the good aspects.
Yeah, they was there for me twice. I had two long periods of sick on the LTDA. Just go back to regards to what we were talking about, the health issues with TfL. On my first occasion back in 1990, when I had the original angiogram, the public carriage office wrote me a wonderful letter saying, after it all, said, "We wish you all the best of health and we wish you a long and happy career as a cab driver."
Yeah.
Do you think TfL would ever send you out a letter?
No, you've just that was the difference, wasn't it?
Yeah.
You used to get commented on for having a career where not one single complaint was put in against you. it would be mentioned and kept in your record. Not this guy would be 80 years old, driven a cab since he was 22, not one complaint. It would be something that was a Medal of Honour. But no, there's no medals of honour anymore in that sense.
No, not at all. Not at all. It really is, as we said previously, it's box ticking by a faceless person up in Sheffield who sits there and they look at their screen, and because the criteria is not fulfilled.
Yep. Well, I found that out recently as well. The Sheffield part is the box ticking part. It's an outsourced piece of work, and then everything comes back to them, and they do it as if it was them. It was very confusing for me. So when you're speaking to Sheffield, you're speaking to
I think Sheffield only check the documents, don't they?
Yes. But so you got nothing to do with Sheffield. You don't want to speak to them.
People always thought that when you ring up, or used to ring up, or emails, that they were going to Sheffield, but they're not actually, are they?
Well, there was a stage where you did ring up and you were talking to Sheffield to get payments sort of sorted out, and they would hang up on you. Do you remember Daryl? Daryl phoned me and said, Dino, I'm trying to get this feed paid, and they keep hanging up on me. I said, I don't believe it, Daryl. Let me phone up. I phoned up and I said, listen, I'm trying to pay this fee. There's a problem with the details. You put in the details and it won't take the money every time you do this particular guy. And she started to get a little bit snotty, and then she hung up on me. And I said, I don't believe it. I said, are you working? What made her hang up? I said, sorry, are you working from home? Bosh. Hung up.
Well, I think they do work from home.
Yeah.
Because sometimes you hear kids screaming.
Well, I've had people not them, but I can tell they're at the shops. Mm-hmm. And they say, well, we can't take that at the moment or whatever. But I can hear they're in like Blue Water or wherever. And you have to wait for a call back, and that's when they finish their shopping.
Yeah. Do you want cash back with that? You hear in the background. This is the modern world, isn't it? Eh? Oh dear. So Pete, other things I wanted to talk to you about, because you've got, like Dave's got some fantastic stories. So I'm going to fill you in on one of Dave's, and then you can fill us, because you've got the Spandau Ballet connection.
Yes, sir.
Dave's got a bigger connection. Dave was on the set of The Warriors.
Well, I don't know if you know the film The Warriors. I was on quite a few. Mum's brother, my uncle Johnny, was an electrician on films. He was an electrician in Surrey Docks as a youngster, and he went to America in 1965 and ended up being on many films, including The Warriors. But and when we was out there in 74, 76 and 78 and that, we used to go on different sets, on all different movies. And when we used to come back, and we lived in Bermondsey at the time, we used to tell people, and no one believed us. So we stopped telling people that we'd actually been on like the original Stepford Wives. And I met people like Catherine Ross and Brian Forbes and people like that, directors, and I just stopped telling anyone for years and years and years, really, until I was having a conversation with him, because I just thought, well, it's pointless. No one believes that he was on all these sets of these great movies. But as a kid, I was.
Do you know The Warriors? You don't remember The Warriors? Yes. The Wanderers was the Warriors and The Wanderers. There was the gang films of the 70s. Yeah. And The Warriors is an absolute classic.
We was only on the bit of it, the start of it was Cyrus has come out to play, and it was all filmed every night in the park. And I remember the policeman being there, and I can't remember which way round it was now. I remember my uncle saying the real policeman's in the light shirt and the actors in the dark shirt. They had the only thing you could tell was a slightly different colour of blue shirt or whatever they had on.
So the real police were monitoring the situation.
They looked exactly the same, but they knew, because they'd done that deliberate so people could tell the difference.
Well, Pete's story is he was chucked out of Spandau Ballet because he just couldn't drum properly on True. He was playing True.
Right, here we go. Right, claims of fame. Actually, prior to that, I had another claim. I was courted. Well, I say courted, but I was chatted up by a young lady called Susan from Elmstead Woods, who later in life become Susie and the Banshees.
No way.
We used to go to the old club in Neal Street. Covent Garden, Shagaramas, which then morphed into the Roxy, the famous punk club. But back in the day, I've been talking about, showing my age now, in the mid-70s, she was...
That's where it started. This is where Sex Pistols... No,
because back in Shagaramas was a moody little pseudo trendy stroke gay sort of like as a lot of the places was in Soho there, and it was a place where like Philip Salon and all those wannabe dressing up kids later come from, and that was their original stomping ground in Shagaramas. And obviously she was one of the, and then a few times, because she lived in Elmsted Woods, I lived in Bermondsey, she gave me a lift home a few times because she used to have a car come to pick her up.
So this scene, I mean, the Spandau Ballet is the new romantic scene, and you're now talking about the punk scene. Was you a punk?
This was before. I was the only punk who wore an Armani.
Oh shit! Was you a punk, Dave?
No,
I was the only
rude boy.
Was you?
Yeah.
I had an Armani leather jacket, which was in like a biker stuff, and I was the only one would put punk pin badges into that. But
Armani punk, which is an old genre of itself.
Yeah. Anyway, but Susie, she actually asked me out. She asked me out to go to a gig with her at the Hammersmith Odeon to see Ian Hunter, he of Motley Hoople fame, and I blanked her. I said, because I was actually that night I was actually going out with a girl that I'd been wanting to.
Yeah. Is she dead now, Susie and Banshees?
No, she's still alive and kicking. Actually, a friend of mine actually went to see her.
So she's still doing gigs?
Yeah, she still played at Coco in Camden.
Yeah. Because she will get an audience, because they all will. They all get an audience.
No, she's very, 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 very good.
You know Susie and
Yeah, of course.
But how about Gary Newman? There was any Gary Newman connections here as well?
No.
I hated Gary Newman.
No Gary Newman.
It was rubbish music, really. It was rubbish. It was
electronic.
Yeah. And he married his biggest fan, didn't he, Gary Newman? He married one of the fans.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But his music was dreadful. Anyone could have done it at the time. It was nothing thingy. But it was funny for me why he was so successful. I think it was the look, isn't it? Because the New Romantics came in with looks. Yeah. Like, you've still got the New Romantic hairstyle, I can see, at 67. And you do need a haircut, Pete.
I was actually due to have one, but through a mess up with my calendars.
Yeah, well...
we're well aware of that today, aren't we?
My secretary.
Say no more on that. But with regards to Martin Kemp, I was involved playing... I used to play the drums in various rubbish bands, and then I actually put an advert in... Remember it? I put an advert out in the New Musical Express when
NME
for a rhythm guitarist and a bass player.
You put the ad out.
I actually put the ad out. Yeah.
You created Spandau Ballet.
No, it wasn't. That wasn't Spandau Ballet. It was Martin. Don't get this wrong.
No.
It was actually Martin, and I put an advert out along the lines of looks over ability, basically. So it didn't matter if you couldn't play, but you had to have the light.
You had to look
right look. Anyway, Martin Kemp, who we now know as Martin Kemp, he actually applied, and he brought along a young guy, John Irvin, who actually, we was talking about the Packington Estate earlier. He lived on the Packington Estate. Martin lived over on Union Square in New North Road way, and we used to rehearse on the corner of St Peter Street. There used to be a youngers tartan pub called the Swinging Sporran. Oh, which it was a famous like disco pub back in the 70s, but apparently there'd been a murder in there, so it actually closed down the lower floors of it. And so we used to rehearse in the basement of this pub. It was only me, Martin, and Martin was actually our rhythm guitarist and singer. But ironically, a song we used to sing, what Martin claimed he actually wrote, was called "That's True."
Oh,
yeah.
And it went like this: "That's true, funny how it seems."
But we thought it was strange. After a few weeks, Martin started asking our bass player. He said, "Oh, I fancy learning bass. Can I take your bass home to play? To, like, have a play around with?" And then a couple of weeks later, he turned around and says, "Sorry guys, I'm leaving you. I'm joining my brother's bands." Obviously,
with Martin, Martin's the older or the younger of the brothers?
Martin's the younger.
So Martin's the
Martin's a TV personality. And
who was the one that was in the Whitney Houston film, The Bodyguard?
I know they're both childhood actors from.
Well, there's not in the children, but in the Kevin Costner film, one of the brothers was in the Kevin Costner film. He played the manager of Whitney Houston.
I
don't know that one. Okay, we'll have to think of something else.
They're both products of the Anna Scher's.
Which one was in EastEnders?
School. That's Martin.
Okay, so I think he's kind of taller, I imagine. And he's the younger one, isn't he?
Yeah, he's the younger, yeah.
Yeah, now I
But
understand.
actually, I have to say, both, because I've met Gary a couple of times, and they're both extremely nice guys. And so...
Did he write that song you said, That's True? Did he write that one?
I don't... Well, I don't... I've never ever actually looked at the...
Can you hum the tune? Hum the tune. You remember it?
I do remember it extremely well. Not my genre nowadays, basically.
No, you're a soul man, aren't you?
I'm a soul man. I've actually been DJing longer than I've actually been cab driving.
Oh,
I started DJing in '75. Particularly, my first residency was down the Hackney Road. In actual fact, Queensbridge Road to be precise, in the Acorn pub. I used to work with the topless go-go dancers back in
which 70s.
Yeah, 76 in the Acorn.
What was it like then? Because the Hackney Road for me and you, Dave, you was Hackney Road boy as well.
I used to
coming
sing
from South
over
East
there.
London.
Yeah,
in the 80s.
I was the 80s, me when I was over
I
there.
actually worked in a fuel establishments down there because the guy who was the manager in the Acorn, a guy called Paul Foster, he used to sort of like place DJs in various establishments up and down, and I used to do the Hackney Carriage on
Hackney Cab.
The Hackney Cab on a Monday night.
Not September's.
Not September. Yeah, it was called the Hackney Cab back then.
No, the Hackney Cab, next to the old Yale X. It was further. Yale X on one side, Hackney Cab. It's a bag shop now. I think it's called the Hackney Bag Shop.
Something like
That's it.
But I did
September's was a good pub.
Yeah.
But I did five lunchtimes in there. Then I picked up my residences in South London. I worked in the Royal Fort in Bermondsey.
I don't give you a great deal of respect for being a DJ, as I've never given any DJ a great deal of respect. I think anyone can play records. This is just a fallacy for me that it's any talent involved whatsoever.
No, I would totally refute that, because basically...
No, it's unrefutable.
I agree. I think it's hard. I'd be rubbish.
Back then, put a needle on the record. I could scratch
listen,
it.
As I say, anybody can call themselves a DJ, but
that was probably my point.
Yeah,
there are a lot of people who call themselves DJs.
Currently, that's a bit of a standing joke on the soul scene that I participate in, that anybody thinks they're a DJ, but it's not true. It really, you've got to really know. For me, first and foremost, you've got to know your music inside out. Mm-hmm. You've got to know how to work your music. You've got to have a musical background. Obviously, mine comes from playing the drums. I can count to 4. and that is the essence.
But can you play a straight A?
I can indeed. That is the essence of actually saying that. Talking of drums, I had a band I played in, a garage band with, very funny enough, another cab driver, John Phelps, and another couple of reprobates from the Woolwich area back, I'm trying to think how many years ago. Anyway, to cut a long story short, our singer Jim, actually we used to rehearse on a Saturday morning, and he brought a load of stuff in, and he brought me in this old brass snare drum, which basically... it was really battered, and anyway, and it's been sitting up in my loft in various places. I had a phone call 2 weeks ago from my son, who's a very successful musician, I should add, and he said, "Get that snare drum out of the one's recently sold for $15,000."
Well, your son asked you to get it loft and check it.
Check it, and it is one. I'm not sure of the actual. We've got to get it authenticated, but it's worth a good few £1,000. And ironically, I was going to say to my Dawn a few weeks ago when she was doing a boot sale, take it to the boots. Could you imagine the fine of somebody walking around and finding that?
A brass.
It's a real heavy duty brass, solid brass.
Is it a marching band snare?
No, it's called a Tama Superstar. And if you...
Oh, so Tama.
It's Tama. Well, my drum kit was Tama anyway, but what I played. But it's a real heavy drums, and they're highly sought after for the recording studios. Yeah. And that because of the deepness of the sound.
What music you into, Dave?
Now soul as well, really. Anything mellow now.
Can you dance Northern Soul?
No.
Do you like Northern Soul dancing?
Yeah, I do. Well, it's nice to watch, but I don't know about take part in it.
I wish I could take part.
No, I think you've got to know what you're doing.
Yeah,
now.
no, I think
you
it's-
look right, Charlie.
Actually, talking of Northern Soul, and one of my other guys is I actually do a radio program on a Thursday night on Soulbeat Radio, where I actually do. The show is actually entitled Adult Education, but I do play what we call modern crossover, and which that actually does encompass Northern Soul.
And did you carry on with the band when you did the Knowledge?
No, because what happened when I actually got my, funny enough, I got my license in the September. Ironically, in the October, I had a telephone call from a guy called Gary Lee, guy I used to supply records with, who lived in Peckham, and they was just starting up a pirate radio station, and he asked me to come and do a show on the pirate radio station. And that radio station was Kiss, which moved into
Kiss FM.
Kiss FM. And I thought at the time, well, I can't really. If you got caught back in the day for that, it was a criminal.
Yeah, you're like Forrest Gump. You know, in Forrest Gump, he's always accidentally making things successful. That's you. You made Spandau Ballet.
No,
you made Kiss FM.
No, actually, I was good because Gordon, the founder of Kiss, he's actually just been indoctrinated into the Music Hall of Fame up in Camden. They've got a paving stone.
Yeah.
Is
it still going? Because I used to listen to Kiss.
Kiss FM is still going, but Gordon sold it for I think something like £43 million.
Oh, right. So he's short of a few bob now.
Yeah, but now he's gone on to start off My Soul radio station, which is, I think it's about 10 years old now, My Soul, and they broadcast from the Stephen Lawrence Centre, which is...
I don't know, it's in Lewisham somewhere.
Brookmill Road, Deptford.
Oh, it's close, as a guess.
Yeah, and so they broadcast from there. They've got some very, very good...
I'm glad he called it My Soul instead of Our Soul. They must have thought long and hard about that name.
Yeah, it's My-Soul.
Yeah.
The reason I asked, I had visions of him being outside some sort of a place gig with the cab, with the drum kit in the back and all that.
A lot of cabbies did.
Yeah, you can see that being in a movie, can't you?
Yeah. Do you remember a lot of cabbies who were gigging musicians would go to a gig in their cab with the drums or the keyboards in the back?
When my son was a product of Goldsmiths, and these first bands, I was the unofficial roadie tour manager. And
that was good days, eh?
And the cab would be the old FX would be loaded up to the roof, and 5 members sitting in the back of it. But once they started to get a little bit famous, then obviously they.
Well, we should have him on. Get him on the podcast.
I think he actually has done. He regularly broadcasts on Six Music. He gets invited in to do regular shows.
So for those who don't know, your son is Eminem. So just in case you didn't know who he was,
my son is Lewis Maynard, from the bass player with Dry Cleaning, who big success over the last couple of years. They played all the major festivals.
They were always trying to break through when I knew them. So you're saying they've made a breakthrough in the past?
That was his previous band. That was Le Shark, who was the darlings of the South London music scene. They was every South London musician. Le Shark was the band that you go to their gigs and it was just full of musicians. No punters.
No fans.
No fans.
You had no fans.
It was just basically other musicians. But since that they all diversified into playing with various other well-known artists. Then actually Dry Cleaning started because I used to have a small studio back at my house in Boundary Road.
I went
in Sidcup.
I went to the small studio. I've been there. I was there back in the day when Sue was here, and we went there. It was upstairs.
Downstairs.
It was downstairs. It was downstairs.
In the garage.
Downstairs.
You took me to a little upstairs room.
That's another story.
That was the other studio. That wasn't the music studio.
That was that
Stand
club.
over there and
What was
take
that club
your
called? Shag or something?
Yeah, Shagarama. Shagarama.
In actual fact, their first EP was actually called Boundary Road and Snacks, which is, if you go onto Discogs now, is worth an absolute fortune.
Because it's rare.
Because it is very, very rare.
Did you ever go Whiskey A Go Go?
That was in Piccadilly, wasn't it? Whiskey
Wardle Street.
Wardle Street, yeah.
Wag Club.
The Wag Club, yeah. Went to the Wag, but obviously not. So when it was the Whiskey A Go, well, it was still with officially.
Well, it was called the WAG. I thought they
yeah.
abbreviated. I
Yeah.
just thought that was an acronym
Yeah,
for Whiskey
yeah,
A
but
Go
obviously
Go.
they changed the.
Yeah.
Changed the.
Do you know WAG?
No.
No.
Yeah.
You wasn't. See, you're a proper. I don't know. You both. No, you're an Islington boy, aren't you?
No, I'm Bermondsey boy.
You're both Bermondsey
I'm
boys.
Bermondsey boy across the water. I married an Islington girl. So
Oh, you bought you.
I
You got a visa.
I, being an Arsenal fan, I used to joke that I married her for a parking space
Yeah.
at Highbury, but
Yeah.
that's another story.
That is another story altogether. Oh, dear.
Are you playing now still?
But DJ wise,
Yeah,
no
drums.
drum. Ironically, when my long story, when we got divorced and we had to break down the studio, my son's wife at the time, her parents lived up on the Yorkshire moors and they had a great big house with a great big barn, and my drums got transported up to Yorkshire where they laid idle for many years, and it was only tail end of last year that Harriet's parents, who was my son's ex-wife, was moving out to Portugal, and they said, would you like to come and collect the drums? But they actually brought them down to me. I collected them from their place in Kentish Town. They had a house in Kentish Town.
So you've got them back?
So I've got them back.
You set them up?
And they are actually
Still in their flight cases, aren't they?
No, they're actually up in the loft at the moment. But I do keep threatening.
How did you get a drum kit up in the loft?
Do you play them
your
up there?
calories? Yeah.
got a very big loft with a very big loft hatch.
Wow.
Trust me, but I do keep threatening to. But saying that, the bass drum pedal was actually out on the permanent loan to my son's drummer. He borrowed it off me 4 or 5 years ago, and it's
Never come back.
It's never. Come
It's not
back.
coming back now.
No.
4 or 5 years. He's got owner's rights on that.
Yeah. Definitely.
So, but
Did I ever tell you my Edward Woodward story?
No.
Edward Woodward. Do you remember him?
Yeah, I loved him.
And
He was the Equaliser.
He was the Equaliser, and he was on the set of the Equaliser, and he was working with Johnny, my uncle, and it was my mum's birthday, and I was at home, and unbeknown to me, Johnny's asked him to say, "Will you ring my sister and wish her a happy birthday in England?" So I get the phone goes at home. There's no mobiles then days, a landline. The phone goes and said, "It's June now." I said, "Oh, who wants to know?" He says, "Edward Woodward," and I went, "Go on," and put the phone down. My Uncle John rings back 5 minutes later and says, "Someone's just put the phone down on Edward Woodward." I said, "Sorry, put him back on."
And this is at the time he's doing the Equaliser.
He was on the set of The Equaliser at the time, and he was filmed in Manhattan,
Yeah.
around New York a lot.
So
yeah.
Denzel Washington's his replacement now.
Yeah, he hasn't rung. He's probably heard.
Wait for the call. Because he was massive, but The Equaliser was one of his later shows.
Yes, it was, and it was my uncles, well, both of them, and they both Limeys, as the Yanks call them, both
Yeah,
English. And
yeah.
that was their sort of retirement things.
Yeah.
They both retired mainly after that.
Yeah. Is he dead now, Edward Woodward?
Yeah, I think he died. Yeah,
Long ago. Because he was old even on The Equaliser. He was coming into.
yeah. When would that have
60s
been?
plus.
Late 80s, 90s,
Yeah,
90s.
yeah,
I don't
he would
know,
be 100
something like
years
that.
old now
It
if
might
he
have
was
been about
alive.
99. I can't remember now. It's a long time ago when the phone went.
It was when Pete was a boy. Long time ago.
Butter boy.
Well, Pete,
Butter boy.
let's go some history then of cabs. What is your definition of a butter boy?
But it's hard. I would say somebody within just passed that within the last year. After a year, longer about.
So not a 3-year rule for you.
No,
Yeah,
definitely not.
so it's all made up rubbish, isn't it?
Yes, definitely.
And what do you think it is? Do you think it's just a boy, or this bread and butter garbage that I've heard before, where people say I think it's. If you go back to Old English, my dad would say, "Oh, he's a boy.
Yes.
He's just a boy." That's what I think the phrase means. It doesn't mean nothing to do with bread and butter at all. He's a butter boy.
B-U-T, butter boy, not butter as in
Butter
spreading,
apostrophe A apostrophe.
It depends which side
boy.
of the Thames you come from, doesn't it? Really, I think.
Well-
whether it was a butter or a butter.
Well, the thing is, we the three of us are coming from. We're all talking rather eloquently now
changed.
in our
As soon as you
50s.
said that.
Yeah,
We've all got-
What one has to put on one's best beat. I actually did it.
you are talking very posh, but that's the influence of Sue's Islington background. She's put some poshness into
No,
you.
actually, my Dawn's very posh.
Is she?
Yes. She's a Beckenham girl.
Oh,
Oh.
jeez.
Oh.
Jeez.
Well, basically, Beckenham's Lewisham. Isn't it? Anyone from Lewisham want that move to Beckenham?
We're all
Bromley,
culturally
same
the same. There is something here ironic. None of us three are talking our original birth accent. We are talking something that's...
I think words change though as well, don't they? If you look at nice shows like, say, like the Sweeney or something like that, and it's think from the 70s, you hear words, you go, God, I ain't heard that one for ages.
Well, yeah, let's see if we can rattle some off. No one's heard. You ask a kid today what 10 bob is. 2 bob, 50 bob, 30 bob.
Sixpence.
For
a bit.
Yeah. Or what's another one from that era? There were so many words that were classics.
Loads. When you see them, you forget them. You forget them because you don't hear them. I think language changes, doesn't it?
I think I think Robert Elms on his programme, he actually summed it. He said, "When I'm with my ex-LSE friends, I speak in
posh.
Posh. If I'm out with me mates who I grew up on the Millard Estate in Burnt Oak, then your voice goes up a couple of octaves
as you relax.
As you relax, and I think I find that actually in the cab, I speak rightly or wrongly. I find I speak to the passengers accordingly. So,
do you think it's because they don't understand us? I mean, I think my accent has evolved purely because I've travelled so much that if we spoke how we would normally speak, they don't understand what you're saying.
Not with his intercom, anyway.
For those who don't know, Pete's got the worst intercom I've ever heard. That was worse than the fairway.
Oh, it was shocking.
It was Norman Collier, wasn't it? Remember Norman Collier?
Yeah.
No.
That's him, the comedian, It was Norman Collier.
Oh, I'll have to put a picture of him. He'd done the microphone thing. I think Jim Davison done a little bit of that gag as well.
Oh, talking of Jim Davison, actually, when I was going back to when I was saying I was working in the strip joints down the Hackney Road, particularly in the Acorn, Jim Davison was our actually Friday afternoon resident comedian.
Right.
And he used to stroll in and he was a scruffy.
Yeah.
He really was a scruffy. And obviously, even back then, I was playing soul music and he used to say to me, turn that music off, put some Elton John on.
Did you like him or not like him?
He was funny as a comedian.
Yeah.
But
my best friend was the keyboard player with Jim Davison on the tours that they would do. So he'd done the Falklands. He would go off to the Falklands. And my friend hated him. He said he was horrible. I don't know him, so I'm not going to say Jim Davis is horrible or not. And I'm not going to mention my friend's name just in case Jim Davis is one of the fans who's watching this, so he knows who it is. But I always thought, that's a shame. It's a shame that maybe in real life, because he was a Kidbrook boy, wasn't he, Jim Davis?
Yeah, that's right. He was a Cheltenham fan.
He is. I've seen him at a football square.
Yeah? Well, he lives on a boat now. You know, he lives on it's a nice yacht. He lives on the yachts.
Where is that? Where is it?
I don't know where he's moored, but I get an impression it would be sort of Southampton, Portsmouth, somewhere down there. But it's the big ones. They're worth. I know that they go for somewhere like, I'd imagine starting price 700,000 to as much as you like. But you could probably get a cheap one. Sunseeker-ish would be 700,000. He's on one of the YouTube channels. You can go and see him. He's getting interviewed on his boat. It looks rather nice.
But I didn't know that he lived on a boat.
No.
I don't know if he lives in a house as well, because he might. On one of the YouTube videos, if you watch him living on his boat, he talks about the fact of how many women have taken the money off him, because he's 5 times divorced, isn't he? I think, and he must have gone through
5 boats, gone through 5 yachts,
and they get everything. And I am one of those people who thinks
it was originally a yacht, but it's a rowing boat.
Yeah, it got smaller and smaller and smaller. No, divorce is costly in this country, and I think it's so much against the men. The women get custody of the children, custody of the house that you have to leave, and financially supported, which you have to then do whilst you're still living on the streets at Waterloo underneath the bridge in your box.
Or in the back of the cab.
In the back of the cab.
And you're still driving a day, obviously, aren't you? You're still driving.
Yes.
Are you full-time, part-time?
No, part-time now, really, because I say my DJ career in my twilight seems to have taken off, and I'm getting offered more gigs now than ever. Well,
Pete, in my last 4 podcasts, I've been asking people how much they take. So you are part-time. So tell me, the last time you worked a shift, what did you take?
Last time I worked this very morning.
This very morning, I started at 8 o'clock. Yep.
Once I dropped my nearest and dearest off at work in Lombard Street, and I finished about 12:30. Was it when I texted you?
Yep.
And I think I had 150.
You see, it's a good job, isn't it? Really.
Not bad.
So we've been doing this thing for in this trade, it's always been this mystery of what we earn, what's the truth, and everything else. And I know when I put these 4 podcasts out, I know I'm going to have the cab drivers say, none of that's true, that's all rubbish, whatever. But everybody I'm asking, it seems to be back to sort of 90s standard.
I was, in particular, the last 2 weeks have been phenomenal. It really, it's been very, except you taking money, how it was back in the
one in, one out.
Obviously, I remember the Big Bang mid-80s when basically when cab drivers shot themselves in the foot because they would drive around with their lights off, picking and choosing, and that enabled basically the tout, because they was unlicensed back in the days, and it was advocated by there was an article by Richard Littlejohn in the Sun.
I remember Richard Littlejohn.
And Richard Littlejohn advocated this new breed of taxis on the street, which was Joe Bloggs in his beaten up Ford Cortina or something similar, who would ask you, where do you want to go? And they had an uncanny knack of knowing exactly what we would basically charge, and they would sit outside all the clubs and everywhere, and that's where obviously I think the cab trade did shoot itself in the foot. And also I remember being when Uber first come on to the scene, I was at a trade function, not like I attend many trade functions, and there was a certain well-known person from one of the big radio circuits, and when asked about this, what he thought the impact of apps was going to be on the cab trade, his words was, it'd be all right for the cokeheads sitting in wine bars because they don't want to walk out onto the street, but it's not going to affect us.
Okay, now tell me who that was.
Would you like me to tell you?
Yeah.
That was Brian Rice.
I don't know who it is.
He was the CEO of Dialer-Cab.
Dialer-Cab. Where's Dialer-Cab now?
Not here. He did. He would say, he said, nah, he said, I ain't worried about them.
Yeah.
He said, they're no threat whatsoever.
Yeah. No. What was I going to say about
knowledge? The knowledge, though, is the knowledge still worth doing? Would you say, someone watching this?
If you'd asked me a couple of years ago, I would have said to any young man, channel your efforts into something worthwhile. And
this is before or after COVID days?
This was before.
So you still felt it had already started because of the Uber situation. It started to decline.
It had there'd been massive decline.
Yeah,
and I would have, anybody contemplating doing the knowledge, I would have said no, don't bother. But looking around now, because obviously our numbers are now depleted, what with the license, the 12-year rule on cabs, etc. I would say it, depending on, or obviously on one thing, is TfL, which way they want to take things. Yeah. Basically, it's in their hands.
Yeah.
It's like when I speak to Americans in the cab, and they come in, they say, you've got the greatest, you had the greatest cab service in the world. Yeah. Why is there any need for the likes of Uber?
Yeah.
We are the envy of the world. Yeah. Everywhere.
And we're not just talking like one step up. There is, when I compare us to any cabs in the world,
there's massive golf.
Yeah, the golf is enormous. There's nothing that's even close. I think the Japanese might come close in Tokyo. They've got some kind of service going on.
But the only people who don't know that are TfL.
Yeah,
that's the irony of it, and it's a sad truth. They don't realise what they got till it's gone.
Going back to when you started in '82, and you had this era,
81,
sorry, and I remember that era where Canary Wharf was just.
Yeah, it
started the development of the crop. So everybody's big money, weren't they? It's the Thatcher years. So I'm wondering, was the phrase "the game's dead" pre that, or it started from there?
That started whilst I was doing the knowledge.
Right, so it's still there.
Cab drivers would come alongside me. You ain't going to earn no money. But saying that, I actually, when I started the knowledge, my grandfather, God rest his soul, he worked as a porter in the posh flats in Mayfair. Yeah. And I said to him, I'm going to do. He went, nah. It's rubbish. That was that was back in, and obviously he would have spoke to a lot of cab drivers. Yeah. But then again, saying that, it's the old adage with cab drivers, you only hear about the good days, you don't hear about the bad days.
Well, I'm going to tell you a sad story then. Basically, when I went to school, as a kid, we wasn't rich. And in terms of school kids, there was 3 of us in my school. We were the 3 poorest kids in the school. And it meant that my dad... let's not go into too many personal things, but we were not rich. all the kids in the school who had dinner money, clothes, all their dads were cab drivers. Everybody who had, for me, it was like they were mint, and they all lived in they lived in houses. They'd stepped away from a council house. They lived in a place that had a drive. So I used to dream of my dad maybe, please Dad, be a cab driver. Because we're poor. But anyway.
So you feel it's worth doing now?
I would say that there's definitely a resurgence.
Massively so.
I think so, yes. Get up, sign up, come to the school.
Yeah.
How long did it take you to do the knowledge?
From the actual day of actually starting it, because obviously the system was different then, because you had to do so many pages of the book before you could apply to go up.
You was on a modular system, 468 runs, but you'd come up after doing 80 or 100, 80 of those.
Correct.
Yeah.
From the date of my first appearance until the day of actually getting my rec, it was 15 months. I actually spent all my working life in the city. I was actually a thing called a telegram boy. Running
telegrams from one place to another.
Yeah, well, I was based in the old stock exchange in Throckmorton Street, which I knew the EC area like the back of my hand. Always being in the West End after work, I knew the West End. It was outlying areas such as Kilburn, and that was strange foreign territory.
So what did you say about this fact then? You done it in 15 months. And I had some older cab drivers on. I don't know if you saw that particular podcast. They were the two old. Sylvie was on it. He's similar era, but I think he's slightly. You're actually pre him. You're older in the trade than he was. He felt that people today weren't working as well as we did, because they would take you. 15 months is unheard of now. That's not going to happen. Nobody is going to do the knowledge in 15 months. But yet you had 468 runs to do, and they've got 320 to do now. And if you work on the system that they're telling you to do, which is you've got to search Call My Radius, you had 936 radiuses to search, apparently. This whole task would have taken you a monumental amount of time if you did that. But we didn't do that because there was tricks and traits of knowing what you needed to know to pass the exams. But now, minimum, you can do it in 2 years now, but you would never be looking at 15 months. But Sylvie says that basically that we don't work as hard now as they did back then.
I think it was on my first appearance, I had Mr. Lippett, and the run went from the Theosophical Society.
The Royal Philosophical Society.
I think back in the day it was in Great Russell Street or something like that. Anyway, something like that. And it was going to Arundel Gardens, Ladbroke Grove. Yeah. And I said, I dropped the Theosophical Society, but obviously I knew Arundel Gardens, because the reason I remembered that was my old Raleigh runaround moped had conked down it a few months earlier. But he said to me, he said, what was your recollection of going along Holland Park? So, but what he was looking for, he was looking to see whether or not I actually went out
and noticed other stuff
on the bike, because he was looking for, because if you know Holland Park Avenue, it's trees basically. Yeah. It's basically covered.
I
trees.
don't know Holland Park Avenue, but it's okay.
But you know what I mean. It's covered, and that's what he was actually looking for.
So you could give that kind of ended as well. Giving the description to kind of prove you was going on a bike. Because one of the things they wanted you to do, and still today, but it's hard to do, and we spoke about this earlier, they do want you to go out. But like you said, Dave, you had a massive experience. You're driving in London your whole life. The need to go out isn't that great. But the opposite end of the spectrum, there are people doing the knowledge right now who don't know London at all, but are sitting at home trying to absorb pictures of Google.
That's what they shouldn't do. I said the same. My son's just started it, and I said to him, you need to go on the bike. You need to be out there.
Yeah.
And I would say to anyone who's driven for it, there's some roads you just don't need to go if you've driven them for years. What's the point going to look at? It's like looking at your own house, isn't it? Standing back and looking. What's the point? You know what it looks like. You know where it is.
So basically, the idea is if you know it, you don't need to go.
Look
but
at
if
what you don't know.
You must go and have a look. And build up a memory. So the repetition of the visits will build up a memory and build up a visualization that is only built up through repeated visits. There's no technique involved, just the more you visit somewhere. And I often say to people, you hear them say, I can't visualize it. When we think of Oxford Street right now, all of us have been up Oxford Street a million times. What do you think that truth of that image that we're creating in our head is? It's not real. We're just saying to ourselves that represents my image of Oxford Street. It's not we couldn't sit down and paint a picture.
Born in Hollingsworth, and all along.
You can name every shop
all along the party. Funny enough, ironically, when I first got my badge, and obviously through working in the city as a telegram boy, people used to say to me, "Oh, such and such number, say Cheapside or something like that," and I would say, "What floor are you going to?" And they go, "Excuse me." I say, "Well, I'll tell you what company you're going to," because I just happened to to know.
Yeah,
but it was.
So on that note, it is worth doing.
Yes, definitely.
It is. I'm going to end it because it's been an hour and 8 minutes, and it's a long thing, and it's been a lovely chatting. And I love you very much. It's really lovely having you here and
so
talk to you,
much.
and David having you here again as my regular
David.
co-host.